welcome back to my channel. Today in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to crochet this simple eyelet sweater. This is going to be a full video tutorial beginning to end. We're going to make the back, which has these simple but cute eyelets on the back of our sweater, and then we are going to make the front, which is an easy construction of mostly all double crochet, but we will make this beautifully scooped neckline, also with this applied ribbing here on the neckline, and then we will attach our sleeves and work those down, and then additionally add some more ribbing for the cuff of our sleeves. So let's get started. For this sweater I am using a worsted weight yarn. This is Swish worsted weight from Knit Picks or We Crochet. This is a wool yarn, 100% superwash merino wool. You can use any worsted weight yarn for this pattern. It can be acrylic as well, does not need to be wool. And I'm using an H 5mm crochet hook. Listed down below is the link to the written pattern, which will have all of the sizing info and yarn info and stitch counts for all the different sizes. This pattern is written in sizes, women's sizes small through 3X, so you'll find all of the stitch counts and details for row counts and everything in the written pattern linked below. For this sweater, we are going to be making front and back panels. Both of the panels start from the bottom and are worked up, and then we will join, after sewing the panels together, join at the armholes for the sleeves. So we're going to be starting with the back panel of our sweater, and we're going to be starting with the ribbing across the bottom. So now I'm going to start by getting my yarn on my hook, and I'm actually going to leave a nice long end here to help me with sewing. So I'm going to use this end here when I sew my panels together. So I'm going to make it nice and long. There we go. And then I'm going to get my yarn on my hook here. And I'm going to start just with a chain 9 because I'm starting with that ribbing along the bottom. So I'm going to pull my yarn through the loop that's on my hook. Okay, now I'm going to start in the second chain from my hook and do a row of single crochet. I always like to work into the back humps of my chains. I feel like they're easier to see and count, and then you get this nice edging along the bottom. So I'm going to turn my chains over, and in the second, so there's the first, second chain from my hook, I'm going to insert my hook into that chain there, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2 for my first single crochet. Now I will single crochet in each chain across. So insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull through 2. I'm going to do that across, so we'll have a total of 8 single crochet for row 1. So here is row 1 with 8 single crochet. Now I will start to make that ribbing. So I will chain 1 and turn. I'm going to make a regular single crochet in this first stitch. The chain 1 here does not count as a stitch, so I will insert my hook and work into the very first single crochet, a regular single crochet. Now I'm going to do a single crochet back loop only in the next 6. So here we have both of those top loops where we generally insert our hook into both. For back loop only, we're only inserting our hook into this back loop here. So I'm going to insert my hook here, pull up a loop, and work a single crochet. So what that does is it pushes this front loop forward, and that's what's going to give us those notches for that ribbing look. So So again, single crochet, back loop only. I'm going to do that in 6 stitches, so I need 4 more. So here's that back loop here, and then single crochet. Basically, I'm going to do it all the way across. So if you wanted to make your ribbing wider and you chained more than 9, just do their single crochet, back loop only all the way to the last stitch. One more here. And then now I'm in my last single crochet. I'm going to work a regular single crochet now in the last stitch, where I will insert my hook into both of those top loops. So that'll create that ribbing look. You can see how it looks, how it has that notch across the top, and it pushes that front loop forward. And I always like to do my ribbing with a regular single crochet at both ends, because it just gives a nice clean edge on both sides of the ribbing. So now chain 1 and turn, and we're just going to be repeating that row. So again, single crochet in the first stitch, and then single crochet, back loop only in the next 6. And then regular single crochet in the last. So we're going to be repeating that row to the row indicated for the size that you're making. I'm going to be making a size small for this sample, so I will be repeating row 2 to row 65. Now this ribbing will be the width of your sweater, because it will be turned this way, and then we're going to be working across it this direction. So however many rows you make, this is going to be the width of your sweater, and so you can change it. It doesn't have to be the number that's on the pattern, so it can be whatever width you're looking for. Just make sure you have an odd number of rows. So continue repeating row 2 to the correct row for the size that you're making for your ribbing. Here I have repeated that row for the ribbing all the way to the correct row for the size that I am making. Again, if you're adjusting this, just make sure you have an odd number of rows. Also note that the ribbing will be a couple inches shorter than our finished bust size or our finished width. This is roughly the width of the sweater, but it will still be a couple inches wider than this, because this ribbing is tighter than the stitches for the rest of the sweater. So it will widen a little bit as we continue. So if you're concerned that it's a couple inches smaller than the width in the pattern notes, don't worry, it will grow and get wider as we continue. So you can see how doing those back loop only stitches created this ribbing look for the bottom of our sweater, and it is very stretchy, so again it will widen as we continue on. So now we're going to be working across the ribbing in this direction, because this is the bottom of our sweater and the ribbing will run vertically. So now we're going to go this direction across our ribbing. So now we're going to start the main body of our sweater. We're going to start with a chain 1. I'm going to turn this direction, and I'm going to be working 1 single crochet at the end of each row here. So here in my first row, I'm going to work a single crochet. So I'm just going to kind of go down maybe the space here underneath the first stitch. Just find a place that makes sense to insert your hook and work a single crochet. Here's the end of my next row. Insert your hook and work a single crochet. And then here's the end of the next row here. So we're just finding places to insert our hook to work those single crochets for row 1 of the main body of our sweater. So you should have the same number of single crochet as you do rows. And while we won't be doing single crochets for the remainder of the sweater, whenever I'm working in the end of a row like this, whether it's for a sleeve, the border of a blanket, the edging from ribbing, anytime, I always start with a row of single crochet. It just cleans up that edge for you, and then I will continue working the rest of the pattern in whatever stitch. But anytime I'm working at the end of rows, I always start with a row of single crochet. I just feel like it looks much cleaner and gives a nice clean edge for you to continue with that other stitch that you're working on. So continue single crocheting at the end of each row, just finding a place that makes sense to insert your hook all the way across. Here I have worked row 1 of the main body of my sweater. I have 1 single crochet at the end of each row. You should have the same number of single crochet as you do rows of ribbing. You can see how it's already starting to widen. See how it kind of bows out like that? That's normal. That's because the stitches that you're making here are wider than the stitches made in the ribbing. So it's going to continue to do that and be tight at the bottom, just like ribbing is supposed to do. So now we're going to continue on with the main portion of our sweater. So now for the remainder of the sweater, we're going to be working double crochet stitches and chain stitches as well for the eyelet section. But the next row is going to be double crochet, and for the remainder of the pattern, chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So I will start row 2 with a chain 3. I'm going to turn, and this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So that means I am not going to work in this first stitch because I already have my chain 3 right there. I'm going to start in the next stitch with a double crochet. So I will yarn over and insert my hook into the next stitch here. This one already has the chain 3, so I'm going to be starting here in the next, and then insert my hook and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2 for my next double crochet. So I have 2 stitches, this chain 3 and my double crochet. I have 2 double crochets so far, with my chain 3 counting as my first. So now I will double crochet in each stitch across. So here is row 2. I did a double crochet in each stitch across. Now for row 3, we're going to repeat that same row. So I'll start with a chain 3 and turn. Because my chain 3 counts as my first stitch, I will work in the next stitch now with another row of double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, and work a double crochet. Now double crochet across the row. So here's my last, I'm at the last stitch for row 3. Because this chain 3 counts as a double crochet, I need to make sure I work my last double crochet into this chain 3. So I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the top of my turning chain and work that last double crochet. So don't forget, when your chain 3 counts, that your last stitch goes in that chain. Now we're going to be starting the eyelet section of our sweater. So that means I'm going to have some chain spaces in the next rows. So I'm going to start with a chain 4. And this chain 4 counts as a double crochet plus my first chain 1 space. And now I will turn my work. And I'm going to skip 1 stitch and double crochet in the next. So this chain 3 counts as my first double crochet, so there's my first double crochet. I'm going to skip 1 and then double crochet in the next here. So there you can see I have a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now I will chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the next. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the next. And I will repeat that all the way across my row. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next. Repeat this all the way across the row. So here I'm at the end of this row 4 where I will do my last chain 1 and my last double crochet. I will skip this last double crochet here and work my last stitch in my turning chain. So there you have row 4, and we're going to repeat that row 3 more times. We'll start with a chain 4, turn, and then now I will double crochet. So I'm going to skip the chain stitches and double crochet in each double crochet across. So I will skip the chain space and double crochet in the double crochet and chain 1, double crochet in the double crochet and chain 1. And then double crochet in the double crochet and chain 1. And repeat that all the way across for row 5. So here's my last stitch. So I did my last double crochet in the double crochet, and now I need to work my last stitch in the turning chain, which was a chain 4, and the chain 4 counted as a double crochet plus chain 1. So I want to make sure I leave this chain 1 space here. So I need to chain 1, and I'm going to double crochet in the 3rd chain of this chain 4. So that I'm still leaving this chain 1 space here. So I'm going to repeat this row 2 more times for a total of 4 rows of eyelets. So repeat this row 5 to row 7, so you'll have 4 rows of the eyelets. So here I've repeated that row to row 7, so I have 4 rows total of eyelets. Now I'm going to repeat those rows of double crochet, and when I double crochet in the next rows, I'm going to be double crocheting in each stitch and each chain space across. So I'm going to start row 8 with a chain 3. And again, this chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. So this first chain 3 counts as my first double crochet, so my next double crochet is going to be in this chain space. So I'm not going to work directly into the chain, just in the space. I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into this chain 1 space, yarn over and pull up a loop, and work that double crochet. Now double crochet in each stitch and chain space across. So here I've worked across that row. I'm to my last chain 4 space, so I need to be working in the last chain 1 space here, so I'm just going to insert my hook into this chain 4 space and work that double crochet, and then my last double crochet is in the chain 3. So just like I did previously, insert your hook into the 3rd chain of that chain 4 turning. And then now we will have another row of double crochet for row 9. So chain 3, turn, and double crochet in each stitch across. So we're not going to work in this first one because our chain 3 counts. So here in the next one is where I will insert my hook and work that next double crochet. And then double crochet across the row. So I did those 2 rows of solid double crochet. Now this will be the stitch repeat for the remainder of the back panel of our sweater. You will notice that it has started to widen a little bit from our ribbing. And you will also notice that it does tighten a bit in these 4 rows because of those chain stitches. They are tighter than our double crochets. So it may look a little bit wonky on the outside, on the edges, but once you sew everything, you won't notice it at all. So don't worry about these sides being a little bit wavy or wonky. Once we sew it, it will be completely unnoticeable. So continue repeating 4 rows of the eyelets and 2 rows of solid double crochet to the correct row for the size that you are making. And however many rows you do here is the length of your sweater. So if you want to add or take out rows, make it whatever length that you are looking for if the pattern isn't quite what you want. So just continue repeating 4 rows of eyelets with the 2 rows of solid until the sweater matches the size that you are making. So here I have completed the back. I repeated those 6 rows, those 4 eyelet rows and the 2 solid double crochet rows all the way to the last row for the size that I am making. This is the length that your sweater will be, so if you wanted to add or take out rows for the length, you could definitely do that and make it any length that you would like. Again, the edges kind of curve a little bit because these rows are tighter than these rows, but when we sew, that you will not be noticeable at all. So now we are going to work on the front panel for our simple eyelet sweater, and we're going to be starting again with the ribbing along the bottom, and then the front will be entirely in double crochet. So we're going to almost repeat this same pattern for the front, definitely repeat the pattern for the ribbing, and then we will just continue on with double crochet. So again, I am going to be starting with that ribbing along the bottom. I'm going to leave a nice long end for sewing. Just lessen the amount of ends I have to weave in. So I'm going to get my yarn on my hook, and I will start with a chain of 9, and I'm going to repeat this same ribbing pattern. Sorry, it's counting. I'm going to repeat the same ribbing pattern as I did for the back. So I will start in this second chain from the hook here, and with a row of single crochet. So I will have 8 single crochet for my ribbing. So there's row 1 for my ribbing, and again we will chain 1, turn, and do that regular single crochet in the first stitch, and then single crochet back loop only in the next 6. And then regular single crochet in that last stitch here. If I can find it, there it is. And then we're going to repeat that all the way to the correct row for the size you're making, or all the way to however many rows you did for the back. We are going to make the rows of ribbing the exact same for the front. So now that I have crocheted my ribbing for the correct number of rows for the size that I'm making, I'm now going to work on the main body of my sweater. So again, just like we did for the back, I'm going to turn and I'm going to single crochet across the end of this ribbing, working 1 single crochet at the end of each row. So I will chain 1 and then insert my hook at the end of the row and work those single crochets at the end of each row all the way across. So here for row 1 for the front, again you should have the same number of single crochet as you do rows for the ribbing. So So here's that first row of single crochet. I have the same number of single crochet as I do rows in my ribbing. And now I'm going to chain 2 and turn and work double crochets across. And this is going to be my repeat for the remainder of my pattern. For the front, it is just solid double crochet. So for row 2, I just had a row of double crochet, and that is going to be the repeat for the rest of the pattern. So go ahead and repeat row 2, just solid double crochet right before you start the neckline. So in the pattern that's linked below, it'll let you know where we're going to start the neckline for the size that you're making. So go ahead and repeat row 2 until you get to the correct row right before we begin the neckline. So here I have crocheted my rows of solid double crochet to the last row right before the neckline begins for the size that I am making. All of those numbers are in the written pattern that is linked below in the description. So now we are going to start in the neckline, and how we're going to do the neckline is we're going to work one side of the neckline. So we're only going to be working part way across the row right now, and then we will rejoin our yarn to the other side and work the other side of the neckline here for the front. So we're going to be starting by only working part way across the row, and we're going to be including some decreases across the row to get that scoop neck look that we are wanting for our neckline. So I'll start with my chain 3 and turn, and we're only going to be working part way across the row. So for the size I'm making, for this size small, I'm only going to double crochet in the next 20 stitches. So starting in my next stitch, I'm only working part way across the row. In the written pattern for this row, it will have different numbers of double crochet you should have for this next row, for the first row of the neckline. So here I have this first row of my neckline started. I've only worked part way across the row. Now I'm going to do 1 double crochet 3 together. So to do that, I'm going to work over the next 3 stitches, and this is what's going to give us our scoop neck. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, and yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. And I'm going to leave the rest of that double crochet unworked. I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. So there's 2 unfinished double crochets there. Yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. Now I have 3 unfinished double crochet on my hook, and I have 4 loops on my hook. And I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 4. So there's my double crochet 3 together, where I turned those 3 stitches into 1. And now that is the end of my row for the first row of the neckline. So I'm going to start my next row with a chain 3 and turn. And I will skip this first stitch and then double crochet 2 together across the next 2. I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the next, and yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. So now I have 2 unfinished double crochet on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, and that is my next decrease for the next row. So you can see how we're going to get that kind of scoop neck look here. And then I will double crochet in the remaining stitches across this row. So now I will chain 3 and turn, and we will double crochet in each stitch across to the last 2. So starting here in the next stitch, I will double crochet in each stitch across to the last 2, where I will do another double crochet 2 together decrease. Okay, here are my last 2 stitches, this double crochet 2 together and this chain 3, where I will do another double crochet 2 together. So I yarn over and insert my hook into this double crochet 2 together, and yarn over and pull up a loop and pull through 2. So I have 1 unworked, unfinished double crochet. Yarn over, insert my hook into this chain, and yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. And then again, chain 3 and turn. And then now we will just double crochet across. And now we will finish up this side of the neckline with solid rows of double crochet, no more decreases unless you would like to add more decreases and make your neckline a little bit wider. We will be adding some ribbing in here, so keep that in mind. If it seems a little bit wide right now, we will be adding some ribbing the same size as the ribbing on the bottom of the sweater. So we will be adding about 1 inch or so on each side of the neckline, because it does seem kind of wide right now, but don't worry, we will be adding to it. So go ahead and continue with these solid rows of double crochet until this side of the neckline is the completed length for the size you're making, or until it matches the length that you made for the back. So here I have completed this side with a couple more rows of solid double crochet to make it the same length as the back of my sweater. I went ahead and fastened off, and I left a long end for sewing up across the shoulders. Now on this side, I put a stitch marker where I'm going to start my row. We want to lay our front so that the side of the neckline we've already done is here on the right, and we are going to join here on the left, so that our rows are all facing the same direction. So we're going to join right here. In the pattern, it will note how many stitches you need to count in from the left and where we are going to join. Alright, so here I've inserted my hook where we are going to join for the other side of the neckline. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull it through right there. Get it out of the way. Okay. We will chain 3, and this will like to get loose, so make sure you tighten it up after you do your chain. So we'll start with our chain 3. And then now we will double crochet 3 together over the next 3 stitches. So starting here in the next stitch, I will do my first unfinished double crochet, and then again in the next, and then 1 more in the next, and then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on my hook, and then now double crochet across the row. So here I double crocheted across my row, and then next we will chain 3 and turn, and now we will double crochet across to the last 2 stitches, which will be that double crochet 3 together and the turning chain. So I have 1 more double crochet here, and here are my last 2 stitches of this row. So I will yarn over and insert my hook into the next, which is the double crochet 3 together, and work that unfinished double crochet, and then yarn over and insert my hook into the turning chain, which got a little bit tight. There we go. And then yarn over and pull through all 3 for my double crochet 2 together. Now I will chain 3 and turn, and I will skip the double crochet 2 together and double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So skip this here, and in the next there's 1 half double crochet, or not half double crochet, unfinished double crochet I should say, and then in the next, and I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and then double crochet across the row. And now for the remainder of the side of the neckline, we will just be working solid rows of double crochet and continue that until it's the same length as the other side of your neckline. And then do not fasten off yet, because we will be using the same yarn that's attached to do the ribbing on the inside of our neckline. So go ahead and continue making those solid rows of double crochet until it is the length of the other side of the neckline. Here I have finished this side of the neckline. Now we are going to work on the ribbing here on the inside of our neckline. Now, depending on what size you're making, you might end up with your yarn over here on this side like I did, and we actually want it to be over here. So instead of cutting it and rejoining, which will add another end to weave in, which I really don't want, I'm just going to chain one and turn. And I'm just going to slip stitch right on over there. So I'm going to insert my hook into this first stitch, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop of my hook. And I'm just going to do that across in each stitch. Nice and loose. I don't want to make it tight. I just want to get my yarn over to that other side, and I really just don't want to add an extra end to weave in. Why work harder when you don't have to? I'm just going to slip stitch over there. Making it loose. Now, does this take longer than actually weaving in the end? I don't know. But I much prefer doing this. So this is what I shall do. Alrighty, so here now I am on the inside of my neckline, which is where I want to be, so that I can do my ribbing. And this, we're going to use a technique called applied ribbing, which is the same technique we'll also be using for the cuff of our sleeves. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be working our ribbing in rows this way and joining it to our main piece as we go. So there won't be any sewing or anything like that involved. So now that I have my yarn on the side, the inside of my neckline where I want it, I'm going to do a row of single crochet before I start my ribbing, so that I have a nice clean edge for when I am attaching this applied ribbing to my main piece. I'm going to chain one, and I'm just going to single crochet along the inside of my collar all the way to this opposite corner right here. I will be working approximately 2 single crochet at the end of each of these double crochet rows along the side here. So I'm just going to find places in the stitch, like you could see here and here, where I can insert my hook for those 2 single crochets on the end of this row. Here's my next row. I'm going to insert my hook here, single crochet, and then here's 2 more spaces for the next row. And then here in the next row, 2 more single crochet at the end of this row. And here we have one of those decreases, so it's a little bit harder to see. I still need to make sure I get those 2 single crochets, and if you don't have it exactly, that's fine. I just do the 2 to make sure it doesn't get too tight or anything. That seems like a good amount of stitches for the side of a double crochet row. And it doesn't have to be exact or anything. Just an approximation. And then I think this is where I joined. I think that's it. Okay, So now I'm to this row here, so I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch that I see right there, and then in each of these double crochets I will single crochet. You can see how we have just that nice clean edge for our scoop neck here. I'm going to continue this, one single crochet in each of these stitches. Alright, so now I am to the other side of my neckline, those double crochet rows, where again, work 2 single crochet at the end of each of these rows. And again, this is approximate. If it's not exact, that's fine. As long as it's worked evenly and your work isn't loose or bunched up, that you have a nice clean tension all the way across, that is what's most important when working these stitches at the end of the rows, is that it's even and not too loose or too tight. That's the main goal here. Okay, so here I have all of those single crochets all the way across, and now I'm working on this side, and now we are going to do that applied ribbing technique. So I'm going to be working in this direction for my ribbing, so I'm actually going to turn it over and turn my work so that my neckline is on my left. Of course, this is because I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed it might be the opposite. So that all of my, let me show you. I'm turning it this way so that my neckline is here on my left, because I'm going to be joining and I need to be working in this direction across. So I went ahead and turned my work this way. So here, let me move this long end I have out of the way. Okay. I'm going to start with a chain 9. And this chain is the same length as our starting chain for the ribbing across the bottom. So if your ribbing is maybe a different size, or you want the ribbing on the inside of the collar to be a different size, to be smaller or something, then go ahead and chain a different number. I'm chaining it so that it's the same as the ribbing on the bottom. So here I have my chain 9. And I'm going to be starting in the second chain from the hook and single crocheting across. Just like we did our ribbing. Actually, I'm going to shift this even a little bit more. Okay. So here I have those 8 single crochet. So now I'm going to slip stitch to this very first single crochet. And there's our first row of ribbing here. And now I'm going to slip stitch to the next single crochet. And this is going to count as my chain 1. And now I'm going to be working across this side of my ribbing. So here in the first single crochet, I always like to count 8 because it can be hard to tell where your first single crochet is versus the slip stitch and everything. So here's my first single crochet of my ribbing. I'm going to work a regular single crochet. Just like we did with the ribbing across the bottom, we will do our first single crochet, a regular single crochet, and then I will do single crochet back loop only in the next 6. And then regular single crochet in the last. So there's our second row of our applied ribbing for our color. So now I will chain 1 and turn. And instead of turning the whole entire sweater every time, I just kind of turn this little bit back and forth as you're working across. Move this a little bit. Okay. Single crochet in the very first stitch, then single crochet back loop only in the next 6. So there's that back loop. And then regular single crochet in the last. And it can be hard to see with the slip stitches and the turning. So there's my last regular single crochet. And you can see where we slip stitch to this one. So here's our next single crochet where I will slip stitch for this row. And then slip stitch to the next single crochet. That will count as our chain 1. And turn. And then regular single crochet in the first single crochet here, and then single crochet back loop only in the next 6. And then regular single crochet in the last. Chain 1 and then turn again. So now we're working back towards our neckline. Single crochet in the first, and then single crochet back loop only in the next 6. And then regular single crochet in the next, and then slip stitch to the next single crochet, which is right here. It's kind of hard to tell. Sometimes it looks like this one right next to your row is the next one, but you can see if you look close, you can see we've already slip stitched to that one. It just gets pulled tight to the side because of all of the stitches, but we have already slip stitched to that one, so we need to slip stitch to the next. And that is the joining for the row we just did. Now we slip stitch to the next row as our chain 1 and then turn. So we're going to be repeating this. Single crochet in the first, and then do your single crochet back loop only all the way to the last. So you're going to be repeating these rows all the way around the collar till you get to the opposite corner. And then single crochet in the last, chain 1 and turn. Single crochet in the first, and then do those back loop only stitches across to the back. To the last stitch of this row, and then regular single crochet in the last. And here is our next stitch, slip stitch to the next single crochet, and then slip stitch to the next for your chain 1. So continue repeating this applied ribbing all the way all the way around to the opposite corner here. So I have finished the front panel for my sweater. Now I'm going to sew the front and back together. So what I did is I picked the side that I liked best for the front of both pieces. This is the side I'm using for the front of my sweater. I wove in all the other ends except for this one. I'm going to use this one for sewing. But I wove in all my other ends on this other side, the side that will be the inside. So this is the front of my sweater. I wove in all my ends on the other side. Same thing here. So I'm going to lay these so that the wrong side is facing outward. This is the wrong side of my sweater. I like the other side better. So I went ahead and wove in all my ends on this side, and I'm going to turn it over so it's on the outside. Oops. And this is the right side of this panel, so this will be facing me. Now I'm going to lay this one on top. Again, let's see, yes, this is the right side of my sweater. So I'm going to turn it over so that the wrong side is facing out. So that when I sew, the wrong sides are facing the outside, and I'm going to sew it together and weave in my ends, and then I'll turn it right side out. So I want the wrong side facing out on this panel, and then the wrong side facing out. So this is the inside of my sweater, facing out for the back. I'm going to line them up. Also, you can tell this front is wider than the back, and that's because of these chain stitches that we had in this back panel, but when you sew, we won't be able to tell at all. So I'm going to need a couple stitch markers, and I'm going to start by sewing the shoulders. So I did leave, when I wove in ends, these top ends for sewing. I'm going to just attach the first stitch here to this stitch here, and then going to line these up and attach this here to the back there, so that I can keep it nice and lined up as I sew. So I'm going to take this long end and thread it through my yarn needle. This might actually be a little long. I only really need it 2 to 3 times the width of what I'm sewing, so I only need it about this long. So I'm actually going to cut a nice chunk of it off. So if you have it too long, then it kind of gets tangled and things. So I didn't quite need it as long as I left it, so I trimmed a bit. There we go. So I'm going to start here where my first stitch marker is. There we go. I'm going to thread my needle, there we go, through both panels and just pull it through. This is a whip stitch, so I'm going to be whip stitching across. I can pull this out now that I've sewed it together. I'm going to continue working through both top loops of the front and back, sewing these panels together. Okay, and then I'm going to pull out this stitch marker. I'm going to kind of, so it kind of has a gap right there, so I want to close that, kind of go into this side and maybe go one more stitch over just to close it up and give it a nice clean edge right there. All right, so now I'm going to tie that in a little knot, and then I will weave in that end. And then I will do the same thing for the other shoulder. Now that I have sewn both shoulders, and you can see it's kind of bunched right here in the neckline, that will lay flat once you are wearing the sweater, so don't worry about that. So I have my shoulders sewn. Now I'm going to sew on the sides, leaving space for the armholes and the sleeves. I like to leave about a 6.5 inch space for armholes for my sweaters. In the written pattern, there are guidelines for each size of how much space to leave at the top for an armhole. Of course, you can leave as much or as little space as you would like, so you can make your sleeve as loose or tight as you like. I like to leave about 6.5 inches. So I will take my measuring tape and I will mark right about where I want my armhole to be. So that's about the width that I want. So I marked it there. And then at the bottom here, I'm going to go ahead and attach it here just to keep it aligned as best I can. There we go. So I'm going to be sewing the side here. About 6.5 inches down from the top is where I will have my sleeves. So now I need to cut a length of yarn to sew because I don't have a long end here for my sewing. So I want it to be about 3 times the length of what I'm sewing. And then I will thread my needle. I'm going to tie a little knot here. Make it a little bit bulky. There we go. And here where I have my stitch marker, I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle to where that little knot is. And then again, just like I did the shoulders, I'm going to whip stitch all the way down. So I sewed this side together and I wove in the ends, and now I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So now I have both of my sides sewn, I have the shoulders sewn, so I'm going to now turn this right side out. And now I am ready to join for my sleeves for our next step. So here I have an armhole, and this is where I'm going to join for my sleeve, and I'm going to be working around the sleeve here in joined turned rounds. So I'm going to go to the bottom corner of one of my sleeves, and I'm going to insert my hook into that corner. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull it through, and I'm going to chain 1 and then single crochet in the same space. And now I'm going to be single crocheting around this armhole, and you could see my rows are turned this way, so we're going to be working in the sides of these double crochets. So what I'm going to do in every row, I'm going to insert a single crochet at the end of one row, and in the next row I'm going to insert 2 single crochet in that row, and then 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. So I did my 1 single crochet here, and then here's my next row. I'm going to work 1 single crochet at the end of this row, so I'm just going to find a place in the side of that double crochet to insert my hook, pull up my loop and yarn over, pull through 2 for a single crochet. And here is the end of my next row. I'm going to work 2 single crochet. So there's 1, and then here I can go 2. So you could see at the end of this row I have 1, 2 single crochet. Here is my next row, 1 single crochet. And here's my next row. So I'm going to work 1 single crochet, maybe in the post of the stitch, and then another one near the top loops of the stitch. So there's 2. Here's my next row. I'm going to work 1 single crochet. Next row, 2 single crochet. And we're alternating this because we want to have a nice tension around our sleeve. We don't want it too tight or too loose, and alternating between 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet at the end of each row just gives a really nice even width for the sleeve. Now we don't need to worry about exact numbers here. After you do round 1, take note of how many stitches you have in this round so that when you do the second sleeve, making sure that the stitch count matches between each sleeve. But I will not have a round count listed in the pattern for the sleeve, or I'm sorry, stitch number, because it's more important that you make it an even, that you work evenly around rather than trying to reach a specific number. For reference, for a size small, I will have around 46 stitches in my sleeve for the first round for my sleeve for a size small, for reference. But you know, you do whatever needs to be worked evenly around. It's more important that it's worked evenly around than that it reaches a specific number when working at the end of the stitches, at the end of the rows, and when making the sleeve. And we will do the remainder of a sleeve in double crochet to match the sweater, but whenever I work in the end of rows like this, I always start with a round of single crochet just to give a nice even edge before you go into the double crochet. So we will eventually be making double crochets, but I always like to start with a round of single crochet. So here I did 2 single crochet at the end of this row, and I'm going to work 1 single crochet at the end of this row, and then 2 here. So go ahead and repeat that all the way around, making sure you have a nice even tension, that there's no places that are bunched up or too stretched out, that it's worked nice and evenly around. It doesn't stretch out your sweater or make it bunched up like this with too many, that it's just a nice even flat amount of stitches to go around that armhole. So here is my last stitch of this round. I worked all the way around the sleeve, and I'm going to join to the first single crochet of my round with a slip stitch there. So again, take note how many stitches you use to go around your sleeve for a nice even tension. Since the sleeves, you know, are based on a measurement, not a certain number of stitches, I won't have the actual stitch count listed in the written pattern. So just however many you need to make a nice even size and what you would like for your sleeve, because there are no increases or decreases in the sleeve until you get to the cuff. So whatever this width is, it's the width of your sleeve all the way down. So I joined, and also again, take note of this number so that when you do the second sleeve, you can match up the amount of stitches you have for your sleeve. So now for the next round is going to be the round repeat for the rest of the sleeve until we get to the cuff. So I'm going to chain 3. Chain 3, it does not, chain 3 counts as a stitch. So now I'm going to turn, and I will double crochet in each stitch around, starting right here, double crochet in each stitch around the sleeve. So here is my last double crochet of the round, and I will join to the chain 3 with a slip stitch. And now that is the round we're going to be repeating all the way down the sleeve for whichever row, the correct row for the size that you are making. You will chain 3, turn, and double crochet in each stitch around, and then joining to that first chain 3 with a slip stitch at the end. So go ahead and repeat that right before we do the cuff. So you can look at the written pattern and see the suggested size or suggested row size for the size that you're making, and stop there, or continue the sleeve until you get to where you would like the cuff to begin, wherever that may be. If you wanted it down at the wrist, or if you wanted it down below the wrist for a little bit of a slouchier sleeve, or maybe a 3/4 sleeve, go ahead and repeat this round until the sleeve is about the length you want, and then we will do the cuff. To right before I'm going to start the cuff for the size that I'm making. So now I'm going to do a couple rounds of single crochet with some decreases to tighten this up around the wrist. Now if you do not want to tighten it up, if you want it baggy around your wrist, the cuff, then go ahead and skip the decreases if that's what's preferred. So for the next round, I'm just going to do a round of single crochet. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch around. Here I have single crocheted in each stitch around, and my last single crochet is actually going to be in the chain 3 from the previous round, because the chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So I'm going to work my final single crochet in that stitch there, and now I'm going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch. Now I'm going to work a round of decreases, so I will chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to do a round of decreases, working single crochet 2 together around. So I'll insert my hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. I will insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So I'm turning 2 stitches into 1. I will repeat that all the way around, and then in the next, then yarn over and pull through all 3. Insert my hook into the next and pull up a loop. Insert my hook into the next and pull up a loop. And yarn over and pull through all 3. And we will repeat that all the way around to tighten up this cuff around the wrist. So here I have made those single crochet 2 togethers all the way around. For me, it ended up working out perfectly that I have exactly single crochet. I have the exact amount of stitches to finish up my row. You may have 1 extra left over. Just go ahead and put a single crochet there, or skip over it and go ahead and join however you want to do it. If there's 1 extra stitch, that's okay. Just put a regular single crochet, or even skip over it and go ahead and join to the first single crochet 2 together. And kind of test it out, see if that's a good width. It's going to tighten up even further in the next round. We're going to do a round of solid single crochet, and that will tighten this up even further. So if it doesn't seem quite tight enough yet, just wait. In the next round, it will definitely tighten up quite a bit with just a round of solid single crochet. So I will chain 1 and turn, and we will do a round of solid single crochet. Just regular single crochet around, so 1 in each stitch around. So here I have single crocheted in each stitch around, and I will join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch here, and you can see it's tightened up quite a bit from that round of regular single crochet. If you wanted it looser, you could go back to that round with the decreases, and you could maybe do every other stitch a decrease, where you single crochet in 1 and then single crochet 2 together, and then single crochet and then single crochet 2 together, to have less decreases in that decrease round if you wanted your sleeve, your cuff, a little bit looser than what it is now. But it will have some stretch, and the cuff will have stretch as well when we do the ribbing. So we're going to do the ribbing for the cuff the same way we did the ribbing for the collar. So we're going to do the technique called applied ribbing. So I'm going to chain 9, and then now I'm going to single crochet across this chain, skipping the first one and then the second chain from the hook. I will single crochet across my chain, just like I did for the collar. Okay, here's my last single crochet here. And now I'm going to join here to this last round of the sleeve with a slip stitch. And now I'm going to slip stitch to the next single crochet in that last round, and that counts as my chain 1. And I'm going to turn, single crochet regular in this first stitch, and then single crochet back loop only in the next 6. And then now regular single crochet in my last. And then now I will chain 1 and turn, regular single crochet in the first, single crochet back loop only in the next 6, and then regular single crochet in the last. And then here is where I had joined for row 2, so here is where I will slip stitch for row 3, joining it to my sleeve. And now I will slip stitch to the next stitch, and that counts as my chain 1, and then turn, single crochet in the first stitch, single crochet back loop only in the next 6. And then regular single crochet in the last. We'll do one more row, and then I'll let you repeat that around. Chain 1 and turn, single crochet in the first, single crochet back loop only in the next 6, and then regular single crochet in the last, and then here I will slip stitch to the next single crochet of that last round of the sleeve, and then slip stitch in the next for my chain 1, and go ahead and repeat that all the way around until you reach this first row of ribbing. So here I have worked that ribbing all the way around until I got back to row 1. I cut the yarn, I'm going to pull that through. I left a long end so I can use that for sewing. So I'm going to take this long end here and thread it through my needle. I'm going to take the first and last row of my ribbing, and for the first 2 stitches I'm going to go through all 4 loops, so both loops on this one, both loops on that one, and whip stitch it. And now here I'm just going to do the back loops so I can kind of keep with that ribbing look as I sew. So there you can see only the back loops. So as you sew, just do the back loops down. And then here is my last 2 stitches where I'm going to insert into all the loops. And then I will tie that off and weave in this end. I'll probably weave it in on the inside, but here is your cuff. And we are finished with this sleeve. So here is our finished sleeve. So go ahead and join to the second armhole and repeat this sleeve pattern for the other side. And here we have both finished sleeves, and now we are all done with our simple eyelet sweater. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you love your sweater. If you make the sweater, make sure to post and tag me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see your finished sweater. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.